out to you. Okay, now I'm gonna go ahead and welcome up Claire and Suzanne. Come on through.
Hello, so I'm Claire, this is Suzanne. We're the managing editors for Big Red Chair this year, along with the nonfiction editors. Suzanne is also our main art editor right now. So for Big Red Chair, our goal this year in particular is that this is our first issue after rebranding. Last spring was our 42nd issue for Occam's Razor. Now it's our first issue for Big Red Chair. So we have a long road to go with overhauling the entire thing. But basically our literary magazine, each year in the fall, we hold contests for poetry, nonfiction, and fiction. And everyone at East Bay is, sorry, I'm blanking right now, but yeah.
You got it.
But yeah, everyone at East Bay is welcome to submit. Our submission period for this year did end a few weeks ago, but if you're on the Zoom or in this room and you submitted, then congratulations. So currently we're starting our judging period. Each year we welcome 3 wonderful judges. Javier is one of them. And for our spring, just because the submission period is ended for this year doesn't mean we don't have more opportunities in our Lit Mag. So our spring period is our main editing period for our student staff in particular. So I'll welcome Suzanne to talk more about that.
Thanks, Claire. Hi, I'm Suzanne. As Claire mentioned, I'm one of the art editors and the managing editor, co-managing editor. We're all student staff, and as Claire mentioned, in the spring, the next semester period, we'll be looking at all the pieces that have come in and that all the judges have looked over, and we'll be gaining like lots of really cool experiences, copy editing, and just learning all the ins and outs of publishing a Lit Mag all the way to the very end till we get published. And or we published our first Big Red Chair magazine, which will be wild after total rebranding and reorganizing, re-envisioning, just uplifting students' work, and they're celebrating the CSU students and the alumni. When we looked at some of the reviews from last semester, the students that were part of the class, they really enjoyed, and they mostly said they loved the community of the class, the supportive, safe space to work in. There's lots of opportunities to collaboratively work with your fellow students. You get to think about layout, curation of pieces, communicating with the artists and the writers. I made a short list. Oh, we did podcasting. We did film. There's a film studio on campus where we did like interviews, and we're able to do all these like really interesting and novel things. You learn lots of like hands-on practical skills, which if you are interested in any of that past, your time here at CSU, it's great. Just like job skills, resume, line items, and CV. Literary events. We did a lot of really fun field trips, and going to readings, going to the city, going to Oakland, and then hosting events here on campus. What have I missed? Social media marketing, which Claire is also in charge of. So yeah, the list goes on. Highly encourage. I don't know if you're going to say anything more about this, about the class next semester. It's English 390. Please consider adding it to your class list because it's super fun. It was my favorite class last semester. So yeah, I'm not just saying that. Thank you.
I will give a quick shout out to our student assistants for the magazine this year, because we have 2. Alyssa is one of them, and also took over social media, so that's been great. I will say on the field trip aspect, last year with our English 390 class, we had the really cool opportunity to go to the AWP conference. So if you don't know what that is an annual writers conference in the US. A bunch of people, authors, publishers from all over go there. So last year we had the opportunity to fly down to LA and attend for the entire weekend that it was hosted. And we also managed to get school funding for that. So round trip, lodging, all the food was paid for by the school. So this is like the sort of opportunities you can get in our class. Currently, we're trying to keep it alive still, because unfortunately it got canceled this semester. So next semester, trying to bring it back for our editing period, especially in this key time with the new issue of our magazine. So definitely, if any of you are interested, I recommend signing up.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, so we need like 5 more students. That's you, if you're either remotely thinking about it, just sign up for now, and then you can drop it later. I want to get first. Okay, that's please, that way we can do this cool stuff. I want to welcome up next, Yami. Okay. Yeah, because that way folks on Zoom can catch you right here. And Serenity.
Okay. Hi, everybody. My name is Yami.
And I'm Serenity.
We're from the Undocumented Student Resource Center here on campus, and we're here to just tell you a little bit about us. So basically, we are part of a space that helps give a bunch of other students who may be undocumented. We give a bunch of resources, and we also provide opportunities to grow in community. You don't have to align with the center to be a part of it, and we welcome everybody. We also host a lot of events. We just had, do you want to talk about karaoke night?
Yeah, one of our recent events was a karaoke night. Some upcoming events, we have our Smiling Friends watch party on December 3rd. We're making bags for children of agricultural workers. It's called Christmas Go and Pudding Meal. The first week of December, and then towards the end of December, we'll be having a week collab with API Center, and it'll be themed, and then some more events.
Oh, and also in March, we have our Run With Culture, which is one of the biggest events that our department puts on. And we are currently looking for models. So it is open to everybody, and we hope that you guys will be interested. There's more information up there. I know that may sound kind of daunting to a lot of people and just out of your comfort zone, but it is a great opportunity to go and meet new people and be in community. And it can be a lot of fun. So we really encourage you guys to do that. Thank you.
And then lastly, I want to welcome up Angel from the Atlantic Youth Success Center to tell us what we've been missing out on and don't have to miss out on anymore. So.
Hi everyone, my name is Angel. I work in the Latinx Student Success Center. We are open Monday through Friday from 9 to 7. Just like the undocumented, we are an open space. We are not a club, so you don't have to sign up for anything. All we do ask for is for a check-in just for our center to get funded for the resources that we have that we provide to you guys for free. Two of our biggest events that we do, I would say traditionally, is we have a Latinx block party, which is September. And then we also have Conchas and Chat, which is every last Wednesday of the month. So stay tuned for that next semester, and I look forward to seeing you guys there. Thank you.
Thank you all. So I hope you're going to enjoy today's reading. Today's Q&A, we are so honored to host this writer here. We are so honored to host this writer here. I'm trying to look everywhere. Yeah, we're so honored. My Latinx literature class, Ganas class, shout out to Ganas on campus, read his memoir, and it just really like made us so fucking proud. Like, I'm proud to be Salvadorian, and I'm not even Salvadorian. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it has that effect. And all students were moved, and we've been coming together. And I asked one of those students in particular to introduce Javier today. So I want to welcome up that student. It's Jamie Gaitan Batista. Lastly, if you didn't grab a book, we have copies of Javier's memoir and collection up here. Please grab one or two, whatever.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Thank you for joining us today. Sorry.
No, you're good.
Thank you for joining us today for our distinguished visiting writers reading. My name is Jamie Gaitan Bautista, and I am a first-generation Latina here at CSU East Bay. I am currently studying English with a concentration of creative writing, but as of right now, I aspire myself to be published or a poet. I'm proud to introduce our guest today, author Javier Zamora. Javier Zamora was born at La Herradura, El Salvador. He was born in 1990 and migrated when he was 9. Due to the US-funded Salvadoran Civil War that started in 1980 and ended in 1992. His first poetry collection, unaccompanied, and his debut New York Times bestselling memoir, Solito, explored his odyssey across Guatemala, Mexico, and eventually through the Sonoran Desert. Growing up, I was only exposed to English writers. Being interested in poetry, I had taken an AP literature class in my senior year of high school. I wanted to change only knowing English writers. I wanted to accomplish being a Salvadoran American writer. I had seen Solito by Javier Zamora that summer when I graduated and wondered what it was about. I had always questioned when I was going to allow myself to appreciate the world of someone else's. In the last couple of weeks, I finally got to read Solito. In fact, I finally understood why Javier titled his memoir Solito. Javier's memoir may be a book for someone, but for me, it's much more than that. Javier helped me feel seen. He healed a young Salvadoran girl who always felt like she had to hide the part of her existence of being Salvadoran and lie to fit in with others. But Javier didn't just make me feel seen or heard, but he also helped me feel proud and hopeful. He advocates for people to heal themselves. Professor Sarah Borjas had said something that has been stuck in my mind this entire week. We deserve to heal ourselves. So here I am saying alongside my professor and Javier Zamora, you deserve to heal yourself. On top of Javier's writing's personal impact, Javier's received a lot of recognition from the world from his writing. He's the winner of a 2024 Writting Fellowship, holds fellowships from the National Endowment for the Arts, Poetry Foundation, Stanford University, and is a recipient of a 2018-2019 Radcliffe Fellowship at Harvard University, a 2017 Lonan Literary Fellowship, the 2017 Narrative Prize, the 2016 Barnes and Noble Writer for Writers Award for his work in the Mendaki Poets campaign. Javier Zamora lives in Tucson, Arizona, where he volunteers with Salvavision, the Kino Border Initiative, and the Florence Project. Now please make some noise, join us, and welcome our guest today, Javier Zamora.
Hey, can you hear me?
Ooh, yes, but let me turn
Alright.
the sound up. Hold that.
Can you hear me now?
Oh yeah, there we go.
Alright. It's been cloudy all day and now the sun just broke through, so now I have a lot of sun on my face. Thank you all for being here. All the clubs sound dope. I wish that I was back in college so I could have conchas and be in all of the clubs. Let's see. I don't know what the do you want me to read a bit? Do you just like have Q&A? I'll read for a bit. I'll read 2 poems and a little bit of prose. I'll read from, so if you haven't read the book, I left El Salvador in April 6th of 1999. And the whole trip was supposed to take 2 weeks. And we're 2 weeks in and we're still in Guatemala. My grandpa's with me. And then my grandpa has to leave. And we're in a group of 6 individuals. And eventually, once my grandpa leaves, we're 6 of us plus the coyote and somebody else. Then the coyote leaves the group of 6. And we get on a boat that took us 20 hours to make it into Oaxaca and to cross the Guatemalan-Mexican border. And after that, we board a bus, and in the bus, the group of six, we get taken out by the Mexican police, and then the bus leaves. And now I'm gonna read that part where we're somewhere in Oaxaca and we're waiting for a ride so we can continue on our journey. The plan is to make a car stop to give us a ride. It has to work. Coyote says the Boots took most of our money, that he had to give it to them, that it's the reason we can't pay for another bus. We must save. Coyote says Mr. Dólares messed up, that he royally fucked up, that the Boots just want to scare people and don't really want to deport us. Too much paperwork. It's why you hide your money where no one will look. All they want is a little bite, he says. Even I remember Don Dago telling us not to keep our money in our shoes, in our pockets, in our socks, or to double sock it and hide the money between the socks. Cipotillo, don't worry, Chele says to me as we're walking. He's sweating, breathing heavily. Cipotillo is what he's decided to call me. No one has ever called me that. We're from the only country in the world named after God. Think about it, he says. I didn't know Chele was religious. Cabal, it's a good sign. Chino backs him up. So that means he will help us get to los Estados Unidos. Chele screams the last part. There aren't any cars, no people except us. No one tells them anything. Los Estamos Unidos. I like that. It's where we're going, together, to be with our families. I last spoke to my parents in Tecún when Grandpa called them. None of us have called north. When Grandpa left, that's the last day I talked to anyone. Abuelita, Mali, Lupe, Mom, Dad. I miss all of them. To los Estados Unidos. I want to scream it like Chele did, but I just follow everyone. We walk until our legs say no more. And Coyote says, rest, someone will stop. We've been through enough for one day, Patricia adds. So we hide in the bushes next to the road as our Capitan Coyote holds his thumb out. All of us gather around Marcelo, who begins to explain what fuck means. Whenever a car slows down, but then keeps driving, Marcelo yells, fuck! No one knows the word. It's English, Marcelo says. Tells us what it's like living in Los Angeles, where he lived before he was sent back to El Salvador. That he didn't want to come back, but gringos caught him. I don't know what that means, but no one asks. Grandpa was right. People in town say Marcelo didn't come back because he wanted to. But up there, I learned some English. Everyone's eyes are glued to him speaking. Then he says, La USA is the best country, better than any we've been in. He leans closer to me. The best country, Chepito. It's my chance. So I ask him if what I've heard is true. Is there pizza during lunch at school? Do kids eat hamburgers all the time? Are the streets clean and with McDonald's everywhere? Is the beach blue and wide like in Baywatch? He says, yes, 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 and yes. Everyone smiles. Okay, but tell us what fuck means, Patricia says. It's a bad word. Say it. Patricia pushes him. The kids, he nods at us, then leans closer to her and whispers it. She blushes and her eyes get huge. Everyone laughs. Another car slows but doesn't stop. Fuck, Marcelo says. Fuck, Patricia shouts. Then Chino, then everyone in the six says the same thing. Fuck! We scream from the pits of our bellies up our throats, out of our wide open mouths. We can't stop laughing. I still don't know what it means. First, I hoped the cars would stop. Now, a part of me hopes they keep driving, so we keep yelling, fuck! It is getting late. Not dusk, but almost. Coyote gets an idea. People want to help a mom and children, no? Pues sí, cabal. A few minutes later, it's Patricia, Carla, and me next to Coyote, hoping someone stops. We're so sunburned. Our water is running out. We've eaten all the snacks we bought at the terminal. The soles of our shoes hot like coals. Then a light gray microbus approaches. Where are you going? The driver asks. Whatever you are, jefe, Coyote says, looking at us to make sure we don't say anything. How many? 6 plus me. The driver taps the wheel with all of his fingers, looks past the windshield, then flicks his head as if it's a tail. Get in. You don't want to be here at night. Patricia lets out a sigh. I smile. Carla smiles. Coyote waves at Marcelo, Chino, and Chele, who rise up from the bushes. They're harmless, Coyote tells the driver, making sure Patricia, Carla, and I are already in the microbus, his hand holding the door open. The men climb inside. There's only one other person in the passenger seat, a customer, the driver's brother. The driver doesn't say anything, but the passenger holds a backpack también. We're going to Acapulco, ¿está bien? Órale, Coyote says. Acapulco. I know that place. I sit in the back row on Patricia's lap, Carla next to me, Chino next to her. The other men share the middle row. There's no AC. The driver has all his windows down to let the air waft through the microbus. Chino opens the triangular windows in the back. They're small, and only some wind comes in, but it's better than hiding in the brush. Rest up, Coyote says, turning to look at Carla and me in particular. He still hasn't told us his name. We're safe, he says, his voice still a little raspy. It's been that way all day since he screamed at us when everyone from the boats was showering or using the bathroom. 3 minutes, I can still hear him saying. We're safe. Rest, he repeats. No one says anything. The driver turns the radio on. It's Los Temerarios, Como Te Recuerdo. I love this song. Mali loves this song. Abuelita loves it. The opening is so smooth, quiet, and then it increases in speed, in sound, and it's like a firework goes off before. Como te recuerdo, amor, si tú supieras cuánto te extraño. The breeze enters through the crack in the window. I miss my home, my family. I want to sleep. I try closing my eyes. This is Mexico. We're driving to Acapulco. The sun is a point in the sky, the same sun I saw rise today on that beautiful beach. Seems like days ago. The boats, the soldiers, the walk, the flying fish, the beach, the trucks, the shower, the 3 minutes. Gracias. And now I can read one poem just so you can kind of see. This poem that I'm about to read came first, before I had therapy, before I thought that I could write prose, going from poetry to the next thing. I didn't think I could do it. I never wanted to write a memoir. I never thought that I would be a prose writer one day. But I knew that there was something inside of me that I needed to get out. And that something was this like anger, resentment, heaviness that I didn't know what to do with. And especially, I started writing poetry when I was 17. And at 17, I was still in high school, and this was back in 2007. And at the time, it seemed to me, an angry teenager, that the United States, politicians and everyone, went from not talking about immigrants or not knowing that we existed, to realizing that there were millions of us. And the event in particular was in 2006. There were the biggest marches since the civil rights movements. I think it was May 1st of 2006, and millions of immigrants protested all over the United States. And, even Telemundo and Univision, who are pieces of shit now because they're airing ICE commercials, but even they organized and told all of us to either stay home or to go out and protest. And my family were the families that were too afraid to go out and protest, because my parents thought that, they had their own war trauma, and they thought that like the cops were gonna come out and like the ICE was gonna detain people at the marches. And so I stayed inside, and as a 17-year-old, I idolized Che Guevara. And I think it was my feeling of wanting to be part of a bigger movement, or my feeling of inaction and wanting to put my body at work like the people on the screens and on television were doing by marching, protesting. I think all of these contributed to me eventually picking up the pen and just airing things out. So that was a long way to say that, writing little things, little sentences with a title that eventually somebody told me that they were called poems, was the beginning of the road, or the first rung of the ladder that eventually made me write Solito. So I read that part, but this is how it started. And this is a poem. On a dirt road outside Oaxaca. The Mexican never said, how long? How long? Not long. How much? Not much. Never told us we would hide in vans like matchsticks. In our town, we'd never known Mexicans besides the women and men in soap operas. So in our heads, we played the fence, the San Isidro McDonald's, a quick run, a van. Not long at all. In Oaxaca, a small brown lizard licks horchata from my hand. We're friends. We pick names for each other. Hola, Paula. Hola, Javier, she says. We play the fence, a quick run, the van. How long? Not long. On the dirt, our knees tell truths to the cops' front sights and barrels. How much? Not much. We'd never known Mexicans besides Chente Chavela Vargas. We're on the dirt, like dogs showing nipples to offspring. It's not spring. And we're going to where there is spring. We say, it's gonna be all right. It's gonna be just fine. My hands play with Paula. And my now issue with poetry is that in poetry you're going for almost like minimalism, right? But when you have a lot of trauma or things that you haven't unpacked with a professional therapist, eventually the page seems like it's not enough, or like it can't contain everything. And even in this poem, I think I attempt at lightness or at levity with just playing with the sounds. But eventually I realized that I couldn't get everything across like I did in prose. Mostly comedic relief or the opportunity to explore a joyful memory. Like we went through something traumatic, but even in the trauma, I learned a bad word in English, which was one of my first words in English, which was fuck, you know. And I don't think at the time, as a teenager, as an early adult in my 20s, I had the skills um, or I allowed myself the freedom to explore those things in poetry. And I will leave it right there and open it up for questions about anything I have said or anything that I haven't said.
Okay, give it up for Javier.
Thank you.
We have questions already, so I'm gonna invite y'all. If you have a question, Alex, I'm gonna invite you up first. Would you be down to come up and speak directly? Is that cool? Okay. I also just have to tell you this while she does that, Javier. Oh, can you see me? Oh, what's up? Hey. When we finished your book last class, we're like crying and screaming, and everybody started bringing their flags out from their country, leaving it in the Zoom. It just happened, so nice. We're like, all right, bring our flags. And it's been organic since then. Alex, come on.
Oh, those are like people's individual flags?
Well, we brought some of them are our own from home, and some of them shout out to Latinx Student Success Center.
Nice.
Yeah.
Shout out to the Belizean flag. It's one of my favorite flags.
Hello. My name is Alex. It's really nice to meet you. My mom loves you a lot. Te mando saludos y bendiciones.
Yeah, gracias.
And I also brought the Mexican American flag, and I brought the Chicano farm workers and farm flag, and the One Piece flag. Anyways, one of my questions for you, Javier, is at the end of your book, you updated I was April 2021. I graduated high school that year. So you said that this book was to reach out to Patricia, Chino, and Carla. My only question for you is, have you ever reached out to them? Have they ever found you or have that closure that you had with them?
It finally happened, and it didn't happen the way that I thought it was going to happen. I think when the book came out, I thought that they were going to show up to one of my readings, particularly because I knew one of my first stops was in Washington, D.C., and I know that they went to that area. But it didn't happen. The book came out in 2022. 2023 went by, nothing. 2024, nada. It wasn't until this year in like April or May, I get a DM on Instagram, and it's Carla's younger sister, who we go back and forth trying to be like, are you? And she read the book, and in the book I mentioned that she was one and she came here on a plane, and her mom, whose names is not Patricia or Carla, that's not their real names, but they always talked about this kid, Javier, that they helped make it here. And then eventually, after 2 weeks of just like talking to one another, they sent me a picture, and in my memory, they look like Patricia and Carla. And so that was April. We're finally gonna, because weirdly, they moved a few miles away from where my now wife grew up. And so for the holidays, we're going to go over there, and I might get to meet them in person. It's up to them. I told them that I'm free I'm there for a week, and I don't want to push them because I'm mostly communicating with the younger sister. So I may see them in person, maybe not, but I know that they're okay. They don't know. They lost contact with Chino as well, so they don't know where he is. I haven't heard from him, so I hope he's okay. But yeah.
That was our concern. Maybe I'll have a question.
Or online too, if somebody.
Oh, heck no. Oh, we have a question from Aaron. Trini, can you unmute Aaron and so Aaron can ask his question?
Hey, how's it going?
Hey.
I really enjoyed that, first off, and I'll just make my question quick here. How far along were you in your education as a writer before you started telling about your life, do you think?
I think it was immediate. I as a 17-year-old, and I'm not one of these writers that says like I never dreamt of being a writer. I hated reading. I hated writing throughout middle school and most of high school. I think it was because mostly I didn't see myself reflected in any book. And as a 17-year-old, my junior year of high school, maybe it was early senior, I can't remember, but we had a local poet come into our high school and tell us about Pablo Neruda. And she told us about this book, and I think she even brought the book in, and it was the 20 Love Poems and a Song of Despair. And she told us that it was the best-selling poetry book of all time. And I don't know if that's still true. It might be Rupi Kaur. But in 2007, it was Pablo Neruda, and she told us that he had written this book as a 16-year-old. And at that time, he had sold like 50 million copies.
Oh,
And that to me was like, what the fuck? Like, I'm 17. This kid who's 16 has the best-selling shit. Like, I could do it. I
right.
think those two facts, and what the book is about his life. And he grew up in a small town called Temuco, and he describes the coast and the forest. And that I think allowed me to begin to write about El Salvador and where I'm from. And so his life, that book, being 17, the march that I talked about earlier, I think all of that was in the air. And it was the first time that I remember publicly, or even to myself, trying to remember where I came from. Because as an immigrant, I came here as an ESL student. I was in the ESL class. I was a newcomer. That's what the kids called me. They made fun of me. They called me names. And I think because of that, once I learned English, I like wanted to forget about it. Another word for that is assimilation. So I went hard on the assimilation aspect. And from the ages of 10 to 17, I even lied about speaking Spanish in public, and I lied about being born in El Salvador. So poetry and the air in 2007 allowed me to begin to talk about myself on the page. And so poetry for me immediately was gonna be about me and about trying to understand myself better.
And it preserved you.
Yeah, it helped. I had been in therapy as a fourth grader, as a newcomer. I had been in therapy as a seventh grader because I had behavioral problems in school. I
Me too.
performed academically well, and I was in therapy as well in freshman year of high school, and none of it worked at the time. And the thing that, because I wasn't honest with them, and the page, it was only for me. I didn't show it to anybody until later, and so I could really be myself, and so it did. I think it began to do the work of therapy, eventually it tricked me into thinking that I only needed to write in order to heal. Like, no, you need a professional therapist to also heal. You can't just journal your way into healing. But it was like it was the gateway drug into my eventual happiness.
That's awesome. Thank
Yeah.
you. Appreciate
Thank
that a
you.
lot. Thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Zamora.
Do we have a question from in person, anyone? Now we'll go back to online. I want to say this too. We have a lot of dope swag in the back. So I know you have questions. So if you come on up, Erica. So we have some swag. So if you
guys can come pick one.
ooh, okay, Serenity.
And I'll call on Noémi next. Here we go.
Yeah, sure. Let's have Noémi next. Then we'll come back to Erica.
Thank you so much. And again, thank you to CSU East Bay for hosting this event. I read your book, Javier, earlier this year, and it was just I wanted to ask everybody and everyone their immigration story. You know, I just appreciate you creating this space to share your story so that way we have these conversations of the why. Why is it that people flee their countries? And especially now in today's conversation about immigration, like remember the why of why people are coming here to make a difference and, improve the quality of their, of life for themselves and their families. But so just wanted to say thank you. And then reading the first page and just seeing La Herradura, and that's where my dad is from. So I'm like, oh my God, like, yeah, thank you. But just going back into, mental health, and you mentioned that therapy was like super imperative in your role for writing Solito. And so there's also this stigma about like mental health within the Latino community. And so, but we also know that immigration is such a traumatic experience, and not just the journey itself, but the fact of leaving their country, starting off new in this country. And so for those who unfortunately don't have access, or frankly just don't believe in therapy, what would you recommend as like coping mechanisms for people to process their feelings or their experience? Because as you mentioned, this is something that like therapy was beneficial for you. You also leaned into your feelings through poetry and writing, which is, why you're here today. But yeah, I would love to learn more. Again, thank you.
I mean, you know, I think often because of like the patriarchy, especially if you're a cis man, um, you get taught to cope in the bad way. Even like mentioning Los Temerarios, I witnessed the men in the group, like cry and like drink themselves listening to Los Temerarios. Like if you go to any karaoke bar or like any restaurante, you're gonna see somebody drinking and like singing and like crying. And for me, I had bad representations of what it meant to emote. I was even proud, I think from the ages of like 12 up until 25, I was so proud that I hadn't cried. That was something that I like cherished. I was like, yeah, I don't fucking cry. Even though I like went through all this hard shit, but I can drink. I started drinking in seventh grade. Started smoking weed in seventh grade. And where I grew up, I was late. I had friends who started doing that in fifth grade. And I say all that because that you mentioned coping mechanisms. Usually, coping mechanisms, what they do is they tire our body because you don't want to feel. A healthier coping mechanism would be working out. I also did that. I would run 13 miles like 3 times a week. Why? Why the fuck would you do that? And I would, do a lot of other shit, just to not feel anything or to feel something because you're just so numb. And so, I just talked to Julio Salgado. I don't know if you know who he is. He grew up in the Bay or maybe LA. I forget. I think he grew up in the Bay, but he's an undocu queer artist, and he's doing cartoons now for the LA Times, and he's working on a cartoon. And so he interviewed me just yesterday. So this is fresh on my mind, and it's like he's a painter and like an artist because art became the way that he learned to process. I am you can call him a professional artist, you can call me a professional writer, but it's because we both felt like we had to do this. If we couldn't write, if he couldn't draw, he would lose his shit. When I don't write, I lose my shit. I get so grumpy and I'm sorry and apologize to my wife all the time because even now, like writing has become my healthy coping mechanism, but it's a tool that I need. And I think that's what's rarely talked about. I think a lot of us approach therapy kind of from like this Western ideals of like, I'm gonna do therapy for like 10 sessions or 100 sessions, or I'm gonna do therapy for like 2 years and I'm gonna be fixed. But that's not how therapy works. Um, the best thing that my therapist told me, and I think that really is the reason why I'm still with her. We were 6 years together, and she was like, this kid, this trauma is not gonna go anywhere. There's no magic eraser. There's no like was the Men in Black little flash thing that's gonna make it disappear. That shit does not exist. And so if this thing is not going anywhere, why avoid it? You need to get to know your traumas and the versions that you were when the trauma occurred. For me, this is just one of my many traumas, that I wrote in Solito, but I've gotten to know my 9-year-old self better. I also had to know my 4-year-old version better. Right now, I'm writing a second memoir because I haven't really thought about what I just mentioned, like what trying to assimilate did to me, or what lying about my legal status did to me, and how that affected the way that I lied. I became a really good liar, and like I cheated on most all of my partners, which is also a coping mechanism. But like getting to know usually the childhood selves is how you're gonna fix the adult self. And I went all over the place, but it's a lifelong thing that it's almost the closest metaphor that I have would be like accepting that you're an addict and understanding that that addiction is going to be inside of you forever. You can't erase it. And like, how do we cope with that need or that feeling, that anger, that resentment, etc.?
Thank you, Javier.
Hello. I wanted to ask about how you went about crafting a memoir, because I know memoir writing is a lot different from, fiction, nonfiction, and poetry. So I wanted to ask how that like memoir style, how you crafted it. But I also wanted to ask about like imagery and like adding emotion into text, because I know it's hard for some writers to like have emotions or make people feel things, or at least understand that these characters are feeling. Well, these are real people for your case, of course. But I was going to ask about like the crafting of like the memoir and how you went about it.
The I went to school and studied poetry. I have a big hurt and its own trauma, being usually the lone brown person in a mostly white room. And I think that has been most of my experience in academia. And so I wouldn't now I'm in a position that I can like genuinely say that I have learned more from therapy than I ever did from an MFA. I don't think you need to take a class. Like it's dope that you're in this class, but I'm not saying you don't need to major in it, and you don't need to go into debt in order to be considered a writer. I think if you want to write memoir, and I tell this to everybody, like, you need a therapist. And in therapy, you can really get to know how to be honest. What I value most as a writer of nonfiction is honesty. Because I was, like I mentioned earlier, I almost became a professional liar. And honesty is the way, or is the medicine for my own healing. And how I got to be honest was through therapy and other means as well, and this I will mention here, a big part of my healing has also been understanding that I am an indigenous person. I am from a land that used to be called Cuscatán, not El Salvador. And from that understanding, also realizing how much Western religion has also hurt our great grandparents, our grandparents, our parents, even ourselves. I grew up in El Salvador. I went to a Catholic elementary school where the nuns would still hit me. That is fucked up, and that created its own form of trauma. And so therapy and like really getting to know yourself is how I was able to train my body and allowing it or getting it ready for my memories to rush out. Because what I talk about are memories that my body only knew to release when I would get shocked, when I was blacked out drunk, or when I would have PTSD after watching like a film, that would rush out. And so if you're dealing and you're attempting to write about something that occurred to you, a trauma, I would first begin by training your body to release those memories outside of the bad coping mechanism and allowing them to come out, or trusting trusting your gut and trusting your memories. Because as being an immigrant, and if you all types of migration are traumatic. If you're talking about something similar to what I described, it is a huge trauma that I've also gotten to use the word survivor, because I survived a life and death situation. And when you're talking about survival or trauma, trust your mind doesn't want what happened to you to be true or to have occurred. And so most of my struggles while writing Solito were, I had this part of me that remembered things, and then I had this other part of me be like, that's not how it happened. Like it can't be, like, you're making this shit up. And you have to learn to shut this voice out. And that goes with therapy and everything that I've said. And so not really craft, I would just say, like, heal yourself, and like be adamant about pursuing that understanding that will get you into a better place mentally. And that's when the words will come out. You don't need to read any books. You don't need to take any classes. You don't need to go into debt. Just do it. And like sit in front of a computer or a typewriter, whatever, however form that you choose to write, and give yourself a word count. For me, it's 500 words a day. And if I meet that, great. And if I don't, I'm grumpy, but at least I tried, and it's like an everyday thing. And that's how you get to 400 words, 400 pages. Yeah.
Oh, thank you. I think we had Ian who wanted to ask one question, and then we'll go to Lydia here. Ian, go for it.
You're muted, Ian.
All right. A brief comment and a brief question.
And my old question just got supplanted by a new one. So you said you don't even need to read any books, just get on a typewriter and write. But it's like when trying to write and you're processing something that's traumatic that you wish you never happened to you, is there something an inner voice actually says to you, to yourself, and what makes you want to write? What makes you want to write about any hardships or anything? What exactly are you your own inspiration, or does it just come to you?
I think for me, I wrote a book of poems that came out when I was 27. I got my green card when I was 28. I had this fancy fellowship at Harvard when I was 29. And at 29, I was still, perhaps it was like my worst year of using the bad or negative coping mechanisms, what have you. And I just, one day I was just like, fuck, I'm tired of this shit. I want to get better. I can't, like, if I keep drinking and acting like this, I'm not gonna last that long. And so for me, it was literally just wanting to heal and wanting to understand the why. Like, why did I have to immigrate? And then it was like, why, if I immigrated as a 9-year-old, why did I survive? So here's where like the survivor mentality gets in. Like, why me? Like, I was 9. It's unbelievable that I survived. And what am I gonna do with it? Like, how can I get rid of this thing? Oh, therapist, you're telling me that I can't get rid of this shit? Then what can I do? And so it was just that like internal dialogue that drove that book. Now I'm seeing I am in a much better place. I'm not drinking as much. I became vegan. I am happy. I think the happiest I've ever been in my life. But there are still times when an old version of me pops out. And so now my like question that I want to answer is how did the disappointment of being in the United States shape me? Or how the fuck did I get all these awards and all these diplomas from all these fancy institutions? Like, what inside of me like propelled me to do this? So I want to get to know how I got here, pretty much. And all this to say that some of us, I think, being in college, you are tasked with like majoring in something that you like. I majored in history. I didn't major in English or creative writing. And I think the history part of me is always obsessed with the past, because I genuinely believe that you have to understand the past to understand your present and your future. And so, there's that aspect. And you mentioned about, reading. I'm not saying don't read at all. You should read books that will inspire you in order to write. And reading for me, there's this memoir that I really wanted to emulate, not necessarily in the craft, but in the honesty. And that is Kiesi Lehmann's Heavy. If you haven't read it, I highly recommend it, because I found myself reading this book and being like, holy shit, like you're really going for it, dude. Like you're talking about things that at that time I was afraid to tell anybody. But here you have this grown-up writer who was a professor at the time, like really revealing secrets that even I found like, oh shit, is he gonna lose his job for like saying all this shit? Like, I hope he doesn't. And so like reading things that can teach you something and that teach you a value. And for me, that value is honesty.
Thank you, Ian. And then Lydia. Hey.
So I had kind of like a 2-question thing. One is, do you have a picture to share of 9-year-old Javier? And
Hmm.
is in the book, in the end, I was like, what? Like you just ended it at, they called your name and then that was it. And it's like, can you share a little bit of what happened after they called your name and like the family reunion, or is there like that gonna be included in part 2? Like what's going on?
You're trying to ask for a sneak peek? Damn, okay.
Well, it's not public yet, but yeah, my second book literally begins right after the door closes, like the next step. But I had not written that into 2021. I finally felt ready for, I don't know, like I had enough therapy sessions in order to go there. And that didn't happen until earlier this year in 2025. So it took me 4 years because finishing Solito, I wanted to not end how it ends, but I wrote about what happened after, but it just didn't ring true. Like again, like I wasn't there yet mentally, emotionally, and so we cut those extra pages. But now in 2025, I have rewritten those pages, and it's how the next one is gonna begin. And for a photograph, I could, if you give me like 30 seconds, I think I can find one. And so I'll go get one.
Yeah, we have 30 seconds. Also, audience, if you have not got a copy of Javier's book, please come up, grab one. Also, there's food in the back. We try, eat. There is no more.
Okay, so these are the things that I would send my parents. Like that's me. You get this because I'm at home. That's me as an 8-year-old. And these are the types of letters that my aunt will help me send my parents from El Salvador to here. And they kept them all in this booklet. And like I would just doodle. And like, and this is, look at this shit. They don't teach you this shit anymore. That's cursive. That's my cursive from 1997 as a 7-year-old that had better handwriting than I have now. But that was me, and this is my first. I look like that. Wow. That was my first birthday in the United States. This is 2000. Those are my parents. And yeah, I think that's and these are this one trips me out. So that's the nun and my grandma in El Salvador. And I don't know if you can tell, but this shirt is the Animaniac shirt that I brought. And what it says in English, like I didn't know what it said then, but the shirt says, "Ready or not, here we come." Wow. So I am immigrating and doing all this shit, and on me is "Ready or not, here we come." Fucked up.
Wow. Oh man. Javier, we have one more question from us and here, and I also want to throw out there somebody. We were also wondering how long it took before you got a Happy Meal or Pizza Hut in the U.S. And if you had,
it was fast.
Do you remember what it was like?
I was never like, I've always been like an annoying kid because I always thought that I was older, so I never was a fan of the Happy Meal. But I was a fan of the number one, which back then it was you would get 2 cheeseburgers. So you felt like you were rigging the system. And I would get those cheeseburgers, and it was a time of Tarzan and Monopoly at McDonald's. And so my dad, whenever I would go help him work, we would go through the driveway. And I really wanted to like complete the Monopoly thing that the fries would have. So that happened all the time. Pizza Hut in El Salvador, Pizza Hut is like a sit-down restaurant, and it was super fancy. And because in the United States that's not the case, we never went. And I never got stuffed crust until this year. My wife did something really cute for my birthday. I turned 35, and we tried to get stuffed crust Pizza Hut, but in Tucson it was really hard, so we got stuffed crust Domino's. And so
Oh my God, thank
where
you.
we are.
We're
Yeah.
all curious. Actually, if we have 2 more questions and then we will wrap it up, or 3, you guys are waiting till the very end, aren't you? You finally feel better? Okay. Javier, is 3 questions okay?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know if you got it, so we're gonna be, all right. Come on up.
Hello. My question is, in school, like after having moved here, did you ever like meet any other students that were kind of like that had like a similar situation to you that made you feel like, I guess, like better, or like, I know you said that you mentioned that you would kind of like hide that stuff from your classmates, but was there anybody you met that kind of had like a similar situation that you kind of like I guess like bonded with or something like that?
Like I mentioned, I grew up in the Canal District in San Rafael across the Richmond Bridge. And in 1999, it was 5 of us who had just crossed the border. And we were in our own ESL, now ELL classroom. But we never talked about it, and I grew up alongside these other 5 children. One of them was even my neighbor, and all we knew was that we were all the same. We never talked about how we got here, and that rang true for the rest of my time. In middle school, I remember, before I had my growth spurt, I was a nerd and I wasn't popular. And I remember the popular kids. Um, this is back in like 2001, 2002. And the popular kids were really cool, and I really wanted to be like them. And I thought that in this little clique, this little crew, that they were all born in the United States. And fast forward to us being 18, I think I invited them to one of my first poetry readings. And it was like 6 of us. Out of the 6, 4 of us were undocumented. And all of us had come here as young children. I was the oldest, a lot of them when they were 5, 4, and one of them 2. And so that goes to show that for some reason in the Canal District in San Rafael, California, we never talked about shit. And talking to Julio yesterday, who I mentioned earlier, Julio is queer, and his closest friends were girls in middle school because he came here when he was 11, I think. And so I had never thought about gender and going back to the patriarchy, but I grew up as a young Latino guy. I learned not to talk about my feelings and what had happened to me. For Julio, it was completely the opposite. Julio was like, yeah, I came out to them, not only about my sexuality, but about my status, like immediately. And I think that is like the bad, like the extremely bad shit about patriarchy. It's all a power move that just keeps you oppressed. And so I grew up with other people that had my experience. We never talked about it when we grew alongside, and we never felt that we can share, which is sad.
Hi, my name is thank you. Thank you so much for writing your book. I really enjoyed it. I was an emotional wreck reading it.
But yeah, I don't have it's not a question, it's more of a comment. You talked about a simulation, and I just appreciate you talking about the damaging that a simulation can do. I kind of went through something similar where I also tried to assimilate a lot to the American culture as I would hear like negative comments about like the Latino community. So I wanted to hide my Mexican side as much as I possibly could. And that did a lot of damage to me as well until I was like in high school is when I started to appreciate my culture and embrace who I was. So I just want to thank you for bringing that up because it makes me feel like I'm not the only one. So that was it. That's my comment.
Thank you. And you know, it's tough. And I really worry because you know, assimilation is a coping mechanism and it's a survival tactic. And for some reason, my parents in 2001 felt like the macro, so what's happening outside of the home, it was too negative. And so they felt in order to survive and to blend in that I needed to blend and to assimilate and not speak Spanish in public. We thought it was bad then. I never imagined that it could get worse. We are in a worse time right now. And so I worry about the 9-year-olds, the middle schoolers, the high schoolers who think that and to make it overly simplistic, but who think that they can become white. We can't. And again, like I'm not only talking about our literal skin color, but whiteness as power, you know. You cannot or shouldn't want to have all of the power because that leaves your community behind and that leaves yourself behind. It literally creates a rift inside of you that creates its own trauma. And I think that is the way to understand assimilation, and it literally cracks your spirit. And the last thing that I would say, for me, you know, like really understanding that my roots are indigenous, and in indigenous thought, you can't only fix one problem. You have to approach it in a multilateral way. And the way that you approach it is physically. So you have to tend to your body. Mentally, you have to tend to your brain. Emotionally, you have to tend to your emotions. But most crucially, you have to tend to your spirit. And I think this is where, you know, religion is also an assimilation tactic. And for me, that spirituality is what I've been yearning for. I really needed a structure that didn't also look like a white dude hanging from a cross. You know, I never fucked with that. I never saw myself in that. How we talk about seeing ourselves in books, I didn't see myself in that religion or that spirituality. And so for me, you know, really doing that much research, but really understanding that the Nahuatl people, the Nahuatl Pipil that I am part of, we immigrating from the Mexicas, who are wrongly called the Aztecs, and that we are, all of us, the Toltecs, the Mayans, the Mexicas, we all follow a certain calendar. And that calendar is the most precise calendar ever invented by any civilization on the world. And that our alphabet that sadly the Spaniards destroyed was also the most complex language ever spoken and written by any other civilization in the world. And so, you know, just shifting the ways that we understand who we are and like seeing them as not lacking, but being the dopest has really helped me heal my spirit as well.
had said how, like, growing up, you didn't see yourself like in books, and thankfully there's your book and like FN Divided that like allowed Latinx boys dealing with immigration. But do you feel that in a way you wrote this book for like those kind of boys who are trying to assimilate, or how would you go about, because it's still, even though there are books that exist, there's some, like you said, like you weren't interested in reading at those ages and you didn't quite see yourself. How does someone go about getting a book like this or getting a youth in those ages, like 10 to 18, to want to be themselves, or like read a book like this that they could see themselves in while they're trying to still assimilate?
I think that's why I value honesty the most. Because the closest thing that I came to like in a book at the time, I think it was in 9th grade or 10th grade, that I was assigned The House on Mango Street. And what was important for me is that there was Spanish in it, and there was this brown girl, and the book was so thin. And for me, it was dope because there were Spanish and that it was this Latina girl. But there was also limiting because I wanted a different type of Spanish. I wanted, caliche, Salvi Spanish. And then I looked for those representations. And at that time, it wasn't available. I don't think there was a book written by a Salvadoran published by a major publisher in the United States. There was a memoir that I think came out in 1989 in Arte Público Press, written by a Salvadoran immigrant. But that was like the closest thing. And there were a lot in translation, but nothing like written here. And I think knowing that eventually as a 17-year-old, I really wanted to see our slang on the page. And when you can't find something, sometimes you have to do it yourself. And in the process of doing that, William Archila, another Salvadoran writer, wrote The Art of Exile. And that was the first Salvadoran book published in the United States by a Salvadoran immigrant that I ever read. Mine wasn't the first. It was Williams. And it was Leticia Linares also wrote another one. And so these two things, these representations, like really, really told me that I was on the right path and that I could do it as well. And I don't know if I'm answering your question, but I think what I remember of your question is that, if something doesn't exist, write it. I don't think I'm writing for anybody else. I'm writing for myself. I'm writing for that 9-year-old kid. And I remember what I wanted. And what I wanted was a book like the two that I have written. And for the third one, I'm still only thinking about me. And then again, you probably heard of like the personal, the universal. The more personal you are, the more you can reach people because, everywhere. I was just in fucking West Virginia last week, and I was in Omaha, Nebraska. And in Omaha, Nebraska, they like had to keep on moving the classroom or like where my reading was going to happen because there was a lot of demand. And I never imagined that I was going to be in a room of 400 people with mostly brown people in fucking Nebraska. And like reading a story that to me was super personal. Again, it's like if you get to the minutia, like the little details that could only have happened to you, you can reach a wider audience. And so just that I will end with that. Thank you.
For being down as usual. We're looking forward to your next book.
Me too. I haven't written it yet.
Hurry up. No, just kidding, don't hurry up. But, is there a time that you're going to be reading in California anytime within the next year that folks can look out for?
Like in the Bay Area, I do have plans. I think I'm going to be in Davis in April, and also somewhere in Marin. But I will put it on my Instagram but I don't think it's gonna happen until April, March.
April, March. Okay. Field trip it. Okay. Field trip it. All right, Javier, thank you so much for being so generous and being a baddie. And you guys give it up for Javier Zamora.
Thank you. Thank you. And I've enjoyed reading your entries. I'm almost done with them. And thank you for doing that as well. Keep writing. Bueno, buena suerte. Chao. Gracias.